I want to say first, I just met Nick in person. When I first started screen printing, there were several shops that I started following on Instagram that I developed little crushes on. And if you have not heard of Mama Sauce, they're one of the most incredible printers out there that I came across in my journey. And why I know they're incredible is because if you have ever tried to screen print a poster, you're like, oh, I'm a screen printer. No, you're not until you tried to screen print a poster. And if you've done a 1-color poster, good for you. But when you do a 8-color poster, a 4-color poster, it will turn, it will challenge you more than most anything will in the industry. And so I have a deep respect for the business that you built. And if you guys haven't checked out Mama Sauce, you totally should. So let me tell you a little bit about him. Nick Sambrato is the founder of Mama Sauce, a world-renowned spot color print shop, which he recently sold after 15 years as an owner-operator. Congratulations. It's super cool. I mean, that's the dream for all of us, right? Maybe you don't build a business necessarily to sell it. That is some people's business model, but it's really an honoring thing, when something like that can happen. A veteran in the creative industry, Nick has blended internet communication strategy with his various companies since his beginning as an entrepreneur. A paid bulletin board service in 1993, which he started out of his bedroom when he was merely a child of 13 years. From there, a record label, then creative agency world, printing, and now consulting. Nick has experience in across multiple sectors, building, buying, and selling companies. Again, would you give a Print Hustlers warm welcome to my new friend, Nick, and hopefully you guys like it.
Wow, that was super kind. Awesome. And we're awesome. That last session was awesome. I heard Sarah needed some denim hats. I imagine out there in the break, everybody was giving her business cards. A lot of business out there to get. Super stoked to be here. I'm ready to be here. Got my Italian cowboy hat on. Brought my boots. And I guess I'm about to bum you all out talking about selling what we love, a print shop. So, like Justin said, I did it. I sold my print shop. Then I bought another one. That's a whole other story. I have another print shop, but it's not in this space. And in April of this year, I sold one of the most popular print shops in the world. We had hundreds of thousands of followers and fans. We had our own merch lines. Agencies and design groups all over the country would pay me to come to their spaces and proselytize our brand to them. It was good, So why would I sell it? Well, the question of why someone would sell their company could be a personal decision, and we'll talk about my reasons as we go on tonight. But beyond that, I want to tell you a little bit of my story, as well as some of the things that I wish I'd known earlier. So first, let me tell you a little bit about Mama Sauce, what it is and what it, I guess was to me. It is a print, a spot color print shop. Now, normally when I speak, this is where I have to explain what spot color is, but I guess in this room I can skip that part, which is a nice luxury, thank you. We did flat stock. We also did letterpress, and we used beautiful machines to do it. Just really gorgeous equipment to make really amazing things, all on paper. I have done some shirt printing, and you hear a little bit about that, but we really ended our journey, and most of our journey was with paper. And on the screen printing side, we used single color graphic presses to make multicolor prints, ephemera, posters, all kinds of different stuff. People like drafting. We like to push the limits, like with this 4-color process letterpress print. Tells you where we are and were and are and were. We were in Winter Park. We were in Orlando. We bounced back and forth as we grew the company. And that's a bit of a reflection of the haphazardness of my story, that, I didn't really have a grand plan, kind of fell into it and didn't know how big it was going to get or how it would grow. And we just kind of tumbled through things. And economy of scale says, moving 6 times in your first 2 years between a couple of cities, it's hard on a company. You want to take whatever you're doing as far as you can before you move to the next thing. And for us, it just kept pulling so long. And because of the nature of how I started the company, capital-wise, we could never really invest, for the future. Worked for amazing clients and brands all over the world, really. We were in Silicon Valley. We were printing for Facebook. We were really fortunate with our client base. Hundreds of thousands of followers, won all the awards, yada, yada, yada. And, I like to think that we were one of the faces of what we did in our side of the world. We were out there all the time hustling, print hustling, really. Doing live printing. When places like Adobe wanted live printing at their conference, we would show up and we would do live letterpress printing. Really good thing. So, why would you sell? Like I said, it's a very personal decision. And I'll split my decision up into 2 chapters. The first, taking it very personally. So chapter 1. I'm not a graphic designer, by the way, you all can tell. I sold my company twice. I'll say that. The first time I sold was a majority share in Mama Sauce to a partner, an investment firm with Creative Holdings. That was in 2014. And that process began with me realizing that we had, something had to give. I was giving too much of myself. I didn't have much more to give. And soon after realizing this, that I needed help, but I was going to have to give away equity to do it, like a strong thought came to my mind, which was I'd rather kill myself. I'm like remembering that, getting goosebumps thinking about that. My God, my ego was so wrapped up in this, and I put so much into it. That was my thought, and I realized I needed help. Rather kill myself than have a partner, than someone else own this with me. So that was a wake-up call. Like that was like a 1-2 punch, because the second punch was like, whoa, that's dark. All the more reason for you to turn your back on, whatever's happening there and, run for higher ground. For me, that was finding a way out of making it so personal, finding a way to let other things lead the company besides, my emotions and my personal connection to it. So something I wish I knew, this is the first thing, I'd say I wish I knew from the beginning, from the start, I wish I knew to build financial equity and not personal equity into my company. In particular, my particular field of printing, letterpress and flat stock, most people know me and know my story, right? If they think Mama Sauce, they know me and vice versa. So I was really intertwined with the brand. And so much so, that was really nice to hear congratulations, recently when I sold the company in final form in April, most of the people I meet when I said, oh, I sold Mama Sauce, they're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Sorry, I made a decision for my life. But I guess, I can kind of expect that, because the way I built my company really wrapped itself around me and me around it, And so I could see how people would meet that information with, a little bit of heartbreak on my part, or on behalf of me. The thing about the idea of selling your company and other people's perception of it is that, a lot of people who don't own businesses or aren't so close in a screen print shop, most screen print shops, even if you're working it, you're pretty close to the owners, A lot of people might think they have a conception of why someone would sell a shop. Or maybe they have no conception of why someone would sell a shop, but either way, they have no conception as to why you or me would sell our shop. It's a very, very personal decision. And I'll just tell you how personal it was to me, right? So we'll go back to 2007. Like you said, I was in music before, I had a record label, Bonded Records. It was successful. I ended up selling that business around 2007. Luckily, I put all the money into real estate. And then, real estate crashed, and I had about $5,000 left, And this band, one of the bands that I managed, after selling the record label, I still stayed on. I managed some bands, Band Marino. And we actually did really well here in Texas. They were on tour, and I remember the singer called me, and he's like, hey, this tour's not papered up well enough. We need more tour posters, So, I was like, all right, great, I'll get on it. I'll call our printer, and we'll get some more out there. And so I called up the printer, Panama City Extreme, PCX Media. And I was like, your website's not working. I'm trying to order these posters. The band's on my back. I got to get these out here. I've been calling you for days, and the owner called me back. And he's like, hey, yeah, listen, we wrapped up the business. The website's not working because we're done. And I was like, oh, I still need posters, I still need these 25-cent digital posters to hang up in every venue. And I was like, how hard is it a business to run? I just sold my business. I just lost most of my money. I got about $5,000 left. You're just going to wrap it up and close it? Like, bands need posters. Let me get that. They were just going to let it go. They had found other things. They'd come to the end of their journey. They were in it for a long time, providing a commodity at a cheap price, and it was just eating them alive. And they were moving on to other careers. So I took my $5,000 and I drove up to Panama City in my Mini Cooper, which was just enough space to move everything that company owned back to Orlando. Tabletop paper cutter, some reams of paper, and a laser printer. And that's what they were, doing. Some boxes of, remember CDs? Like CDs, bands, music, and all that stuff. They also pressed CDs for folks. Not pressed them, but duplicated them, and a little duplicator. So I got back, and it's a copy machine. So we rented a copy room. This is 2007, our 144 square foot copy room of a casting agency in Orlando. So every day I'd walk into the office through the lobby of about 150, 200 people that looked pretty much just like each other, and made my way into the copy room. And I sat, that's like my view of Joey. We were just cramped. Joey's the first employee. He was in another band I managed. And I was like, Joey, we're going to turn this thing on. This way you can get band posters, the other bands can get posters, and if you need a flexible job while you're touring, come in and learn to click this button. I learned how to run this business in one day in Panama City. I know you can do it, Joey. So he came in, started working with you there, and we turned back on the website, and we made back I made back my $5,000 in a month. All right, cool. We're on a roll here. So we decided to expand into my 2-car garage. Joey got a little further away, as you can see. Many things between us, like ink. Toner, really. Let's be specific here. And that's what we were doing. We're printing digitally. You can see the laser printer there. That's the one we upgraded to, actually. That one would not fit in my Mini Cooper. And then in the constant hunger to keep offering things to bands and what else could we sell to them, and I got around to be an acquaintance of ours, Austin Petito. He was a printer. He also was printing in a garage, but he was screen printing. He had 4-color, 4-station Vastex with, doing screen print, and he also had a vacuum attachment for posters. And he was designing things for bands and printing them, shirts and posters. I said, that sounds cool. I know I bought some of this stuff for bands in the record label before. That sounds like something we should do. So I reached out to Austin, and he said, I'm taking off in 2 weeks, and I'll give you 2 weeks of my time if you want to buy this stuff to teach you the art of screen printing. Hey, I learned the last one in a day. 2 weeks to learn screen printing? Yeah, no problem. Right? Yeah, it's a recipe for disaster, but still, I bought it. I had 2 weeks to train with him. I rented the house next door because we needed more space. That's the garage where we started building out the dark room. And we started printing in the living room, shipping in the back bedroom, the front bedroom. I built desks, and I even built a bunk bed for Austin. I don't know why. Sometimes I overbuild, and for 2 weeks. And we used the back patio as a break room because we were there nonstop. There were no breaks. We had 2 weeks to learn how to screen print. And in the kitchen is where we mixed our inks. And Austin took a look at this, Panama City Extreme. And he said, we got to do something about that. He was a designer. I was like, that's the name we got, bud. But, he's like, listen, I know time's valuable. I'm going to take the first night, and we're at least just going to redesign that logo for you. Great, I'll give you that time, but we got to get to work. And so he redesigned some stuff. He interjected a higher level of thought into our minds that there's something beyond, just clicking a button, but maybe a higher level of design, approaching things with more intentionality. And that's kind of the road we went down. Whether you're printing, high end or not, if you're screen printing, it's intentional, You have to have that higher level mentality. You have to have the right equipment, the right approach. And he started us on that journey. And there we were, Austin Petito, Nick Sambrato, Joey Bordanga, 3 last names that end in vowels, 3 Italian-American men, getting real romantic, eating Italian food that my mom made and froze for us because we didn't have time to order food, didn't have money to order food, and we just, that's where we learned and cut our teeth, over our mutual bond of this thing that Joey and I were falling in love with and something that Austin loved. And of course, we had that like Italian backbone going through it, eating that food, mixing inks in the kitchen. So on the last night, we're on the patio. This is the view of the patio, looking in the break room, and through the screen door, there's Austin on that Vastex. Anybody got experience on a 4-color Vastex? It's a good machine. So he's in there registering something, but comes out last night, and we're like, I wouldn't say we did it, but we'll figure it out. We'll figure this screen printing thing out. But man, Austin, this is so much better than clicking that button. This is amazing. Like even the struggles and the trials of printing shirts and the smell of discharge and even I just loved it all. I loved it all. And I was like, I want to learn more. And then if you ever want to come back from this thing you're doing, he's going on the walkabout. We'll do it. And over his shoulder. So I'm looking at this wall, this screen here, that's the break room, but over on my left side, there's a wall and there's like a window and that goes into the kitchen right over the sink, like the kind of window in a cartoon where like you put a pie and like a cartoon character would float over to it from the smell. But that, in that window, you could see this bowl of ink. It was cobalt blue bowl and it had a mound of red ink in it that I had, mixed to a mistaken color, mistaken Pantone. But right there in that moment, with that ink in the kitchen, everything else, I was like, you come back, we'll do this, and we'll call it Mama Sauce. It just like hit, it was just like a moment. And so Austin leaves. A couple months later, he calls me up. He's like, hey, let's do this. I'm ready. I was like, all right, let's do it. So we rented a storefront on a main road. Naturally, we painted it red and hung meat in the windows. Joey grew a mustache. People started showing up, asking for things we didn't do, like jarred sauce and meat and other stuff. Get out of here. We're printing shirts, and posters. And it was good to have someone that knew what they were doing and teaching us, more about screen printing. But Austin really started to focus on the design side of things. And on that last night prior, I remember he told me, well, if I ever come back, the thing I'm really interested in is in letterpress, And he described it to me, what it did and what it looked like, And I had this beautiful vision of it in my mind, but this is like trio days. You didn't when you're talking, you didn't distract yourself. Be like, what are you talking about? Let me look up what that looks. I had no idea what one looks like. But I'm on tour with that band I mentioned before. We're on our way home. We're in Atlanta, and Joey calls me and he says, "Hey, our tabletop paper cutter that's that we've got with the company that's held together with tape and sticks, it broke for the last time. So I was like, hey, I'm in a real city, Atlanta. I'll find someone that's selling a paper cutter. Got on Craigslist. And I found this place. It was a MARTA stop or two away. That's their transportation system in Atlanta. I got on the MARTA, went down there. It was an 87-year-old man. He was retiring, selling his shop. I said, I'll take that 1940s paper cutter, but what is that next to it? That beautiful golden machine. He said, that's a letterpress. I was like, of course it is. I'll have that too. And so I called up the band. I said, you got one more stop. You can handle this without me. I've got to go see about a press. I rented a Penske, put this equipment in there. I drove down there and honked on the horn. Joey and Austin came out. I had no idea what I was doing. They had no idea what was in the truck besides maybe a cutter. I swung open the door. Joey pops his head in. Austin pops his head in. Joey's like, what's that? Austin's like, that's a letterpress. I was like, yes, it is. So word got around that we had a letterpress now. And we got hired to do our first job, this analemma job. And word got around that we were doing a job with a letterpress. So somebody said, hey, I heard you have a letterpress. I want to film that job. I want to film a job. I said, sure, you can film the first job we ever did. Why not? Come on in. And I obviously look like I know what I'm doing, covered in the soot there with a black lung. But the press, I got the black lung, Pop. That press knew what it was, it looked like it knew what it was doing. It had miles on it, And this was like 2009 on that blog post. It said 2009. And at that time, it was like that heart of made in America, artisan, handmade, like letterpress. Also DSLR cameras and Vimeo. And people were like, doing camera tests. Like, what can we film with this cool camera and put it on Vimeo of someone doing something really artisan and American and cool? So naturally, this video went viral, right? And I had no idea what I was doing, but the world seemed to think I did. And the phone just would not stop ringing. All of a sudden, people wanted letterpress printing and they wanted it from us. So naturally, we moved into a bigger space. We got a warehouse and jobs started piling up. Austin at this point was moving on. And notice I never said a single thing about having a plan. I'm just responding at this point. And also notice that I had mentioned I had no real capital to put into this company. Like that letterpress was like $600, the paper cutter was like $400, these aren't big expenditures. And I'm like paying myself venially, but like, we're not killing it at this point. So no capital. And I've got no real skill at letterpress, and I'm trying to learn it. We still have the digital backbone, which is kind of paying our bills, but not quite enough. So instead of, going out and at this point putting together a plan and finding money, and it's like, hey, we need to scale or whatever, or go to a bank or, no training, didn't know what I was doing. I just moved into the shop. I stopped paying myself, so you could pay everyone else. That's naturally what I did. And so, we spent 4 years, I would say, in that phase. I was on most unhealthy I've ever been in my life. I was putting all my personal capital into, the company. Just the company was paying for whatever I needed whenever I needed stuff. But besides that, I had no car, living in the shop, just doing that thing. And just while I still tried to perfect and figure out, flat stock screen printing and letterpress, the phone never stopped ringing. Even though we disappointed a lot of folks, the viral, video kept pumping, right? And they kept coming, and people kept showing up and filming us. People would show up with a pair of boots and a leather apron and and a makeup artist and put us on, it was that absurd. It just kept spiraling, and all I could do was respond to the mania, and so I said yes to every job. And at this point in my level, just being beaten up, I never had the wherewithal to step back and make it, a plan or a decision. So I was still making decisions just on emotions and feelings. So at this point, I'm like, something's got to give, because it's going to be me. Orlando shout out. It's going to be me. Sorry about that. So rather than, going out and get money and doing the right thing, and rather than me fully dying, I decided to get rid of one of the things we did. And of course, that had to be digital printing. I don't know why I chose digital printing. Well, I do know why. Digital printing was the thing that didn't capture my heart. I wanted to do these things. I was caught up in that mania, also I loved it. I loved the screen printing. I loved the letterpress printing, and something's going to give. It's going to be the digital printer. And I also love this movie. So in retrospect, massive mistake. I really believe with the right planning and we had the right outlook. Digital scales really well. I don't know if you know it, but it scales so well. It's a click and it just keeps coming out. And you can build on that so much. Not only that, but at the time I had no idea what the investment cycle of things was, right? Digital printing was the most mature of our verticals, right? I bought a company that was years into the business of just that. Not only that, it more than recouped itself in month one. This thing's mature. So let's look at the investment cycle. It goes like this. Make an investment. You hope to recoup it as fast as you can, right? And now if you have data, you can forecast for that, and you can anticipate and say, we're going to recoup it in 3 years. 3 years is a great investment, right? If you can recoup your money and get an ROI in 3 years, you're doing great. I had one that recouped in a month, and I shut it down. Was not making decisions on anything but emotion. So anyways, you recoup, get to ROI, and then it's time to grow again. That's the investment cycle, right? And if you're not growing, you're dying. Everyone's heard that, And so I shut the thing down, the thing that was most mature, and provided our backbone. And I focused on the thing that, I personally wanted to do. And what we were left with was a brand, That's what we were left with. And a whole lot of struggle to try to figure out how to fulfill expectations and learn a craft, no capital. And this brings us up to that story, the part of the story I mentioned before, where I was like, I'd rather kill myself than sell this company. Because right after we shut off digital and we shut off the thing we knew, it was nothing but frustration, right? I lost the thing that we knew how to do because it was a click and it was easy. And so I came to my senses and I said, well, if we're going to, I didn't even know the word scale at that point, but if we're going to do this thing, I need money, right? I didn't think I need a plan. I need money. And so I go to people and I was like, I need money. And they're like, what's your plan? And I was like, I need a plan. Shit, all right. So anyways, obviously I got over, that nonsense, which is like, I'd rather kill myself. I turned on a dime, and I quickly realized, that bringing on a partner was the best thing for me, and if you're in a place of frustration where you might be in a similar, maybe the story resonates, maybe you've been there and you're out of it or whatever, but sometimes what you need is someone to be able to get you to 10,000 feet, And this is why I said I sold my company in 2 phases. I sold to a partner the first time, and it was the right step. I was lacking manufacturing knowledge. There weren't enough conferences like this to really teach me what I didn't know of any, at least, to teach me. I couldn't find a community besides the one I had built right there. And besides, everyone thought I knew what I was doing. So I needed support while I learned the craft. I needed someone to educate me on what scaling was, and capital and runway. Someone get me 10,000 feet. Someone teach me how to, grow more than brand equity, which is what I know how to do. I've built and grown businesses up until that point many times, actually. I had flipped a lot of things, but I never scaled them. I never really brought in a lot of employees. I never, maybe I'd just gotten lucky before that. But this was my first encounter with this. I would say this was absolutely my first real business. And it was about to get real, become real. Because like I said, when I went asking for money, they go, what's your plan? I said, I don't have one. So you go down the list. If you don't have a plan, most people are like, no, 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 no. But then you run into the right person. I'm lucky that's well, we actually can help offer a plan. We believe in you. We see what you can do in sales. We see what you can do in building a brand. We'd like to support you in this. And we'll help you build a plan, but we're not going to give you this money until we build the plan together. And then, and execute. Together means Nick build a plan, bring it back, revise, and so on and so on. And so it was a great partnership. They taught me a lot. It was a strategic partnership that filled in a lot of gaps and really grew me as a business person and a business owner. And it allowed me to focus on that. And I can honestly say, my printing skills stopped back then, and we were able to attract and bring in and raise and grow the best printers. It wasn't me. Everyone here knows how hard it is, in talent in general, talked about in the last session, but highly skilled talent, gosh, that's really hard, So the business demanded a plan. They put me through it because they wanted an ROI, and they taught me what adds value into a company, and there's a lot of things, and I'm simplifying a whole lot of this stuff, but, what adds value to a company? Well, assets, equipment, intellectual property, software, systems, these things add actual value into the company. I had $600 presses, $400 presses, or cutters, things like that. The 4-color Vastex, which, we shut down right around, before digital. We had shut down digital. Our most valuable equipment was a digital lease we had, and we shut that down and just paid for it while I was in the closet. We embarked on investing in assets that actually added value to our business. We even built proprietary software and invested our own IP as well, so assets. Other things that add value to your company, profitability and owner compensation. A business must compensate its owners. I learned that, after fighting against it, tooth and nail for some reason, for years. I wasn't paying myself. We had to correct this, The fact is there's a direct connection between the value of your company and the owner's compensation, as well as the time that you spend to earn that compensation, right? And I know we're in COVID times and everyone's got to put in an extra effort right now because talent's so hard, the world's so hard. But don't lose sight of the fact that, it is those 3 things. It's your compensation, the 2 things, the compensation and the time that you spend for that compensation. It's totally cool to be out there, working double time, but you got to be getting paid double time, right? Someone would be getting paid to do that. And again, I know it's complicated, hard, but if you can at least see that that's directly connected to the value of your company, is your compensation in the hours. We'll talk more about that. The other thing about valuing your time and putting a distance between how much you make and how much time you put in is that it can go the other way. You can work double time and get double paid, hopefully, and add value to your company. Or you could work less and make the same or more, which also adds value to the company. But when you move in that direction, when you make yourself replaceable, you actually make a healthier company, both in the bottom line, but make yourself more replaceable. That'll allow you for having a life. That'll allow you for doing the things outside of work that you want to do. It'll allow you in the sunset, if you want your exit plan to be having someone manage the operation. Well, you've already built the company that way. You are not the end-all be-all in the whole thing. So it's already ready and willing to accept someone else into that position. You can't wrap the company around you solely if you hope to one day have a healthy relationship or no relationship with it at all. It's far too common for a business owner to water down the value of their company by slashing the value of their time and overworking. I know, no sympathy for business owners, I get that, but it's hard. Another thing that adds value to a company is a track record of growth. Track record of growth gets you multiples in a sale. All right, multiples in a sale. What is a multiple? A common formula for business valuation might look something like this. And this is all stuff that I've learned with that age, my investment firm, because part of what I did is we invested in other companies. I worked for them, and they taught me all these stuff. So common valuation when we were looking at a business to either acquire or sell, formula might look like annual owner compensation, what you're compensated, all the compensation, all the benefits, paying your cell phone, healthcare, salary, of course, dividends, plus any add backs, like things like efficiencies that the buyer may gain. We'll revisit that in a little bit. Then you multiply that. You times that by your multiplier, right? Your multiplier is determined by things like secured contracts, actual signed promise work in the future. There's value to that. That is a multiplier. You also get points for the strength of the owner compensation versus the work that you do as an owner, like I mentioned before. And also the outlook of the company based on its growth trend. So you've got 3 years in a row of growth behind you, and the outlook looks good to continue growing. Maybe it's on contracts, maybe it's on a marketing plan, maybe it's on momentum that you have. That's a good multiplier. What's a good multiplier? 3, 5 times annual owner compensation. Then you take all that and you add that value of your assets to it, right? So that's the general formula for purchasing and selling a company generally. And it can be more specific to specific companies as well in specific industries. So let's get into chapter 2. Chapter 1, I was taking it personal. Now chapter 2, I've learned a lot about business. I've learned from the right partner, and I'm ready to do business by the numbers. Not taking it personal anymore. And based on this basic formula that I just went over, plus knowing the timeline of an investment cycle that we talked about before, I decided at the very end of quarter 3 in 2019, I decided to begin the process of selling out of Mama Sauce completely. 2019, let me think here, that's 5 years. Yeah, 5 years after our initial investment that we sold into a partner. I approached my business partner and said, it's time that we think about selling. We'll never be this valuable again, at least not on the timeline that I'm willing to stick around and roll this out. I could make this call because I knew what made us valuable, and I knew that we were peaking like right at that moment. And that going to the next level, to take more investment with a much longer, take more investment or go to the next level, it's going to be a much longer ROI than like 3 years. What we need to do to get to the next level, it's going to take way too long to get that money back for what I wanted to do. So I made the personal decision not to lead us into a new investment cycle. So this leaves your partner, or my partner in that case, who's not in the day-to-day with the choice to either replace me or sell, right? I don't think I did a good enough job making me replaceable in this, by this time, but the choice still had to be made. And, we decided, let's talk about, the option to possibly sell. And we explored a few other options as well. I want to break down what I was seeing that made me make this choice real quick. Because like I said, it's Q3, the end of it, 2019. I've still got a quarter to go in the year, and I'm already going, yeah, I think this is it, right? So I knew we were growing, right? We had been growing. We're on a roll. We had a record breakout year this year, the kind of year I knew I could not replicate. We're not going to replicate it. Boom, our growth trend's going to go down. What does that do? That affects our multiplier, right? I knew that for a lot of reasons. One of which, we made a single, $250,000 sale that year of letterpress, which is like, there's not $250,000 letterpress jobs out there. Just not. It had a very healthy bottom line, but I was like, we're not going to get a whale like that again. What does that do? I know we're not going to grow. I know we're not going to get that whale again. That whale also provided a significant, bump on the dividends paid to the owners. What's a dividend? It's an owner compensation. Now we have our first year where we're probably not going to grow, in a couple years. And owner compensation, maybe not my salary or, all my other benefits, it's not going to go down, but yeah, I'm not going to get the dividends that I got. Okay, so what are our options? We can invest and do all that other stuff. And, doing all that's going to make a hit on my dividends as well, and then I'm just going to enter a new cycle, right? It's going to enter me into a new cycle. So yeah, if we want to expand and we want to get in a new cycle, we're at least going to drain some of the coffers. We're going to probably take on some debt, and at the very least, we're going to on top of that, we're also probably going to increase our cash holding position, right? Right? Because we want to have cash. You need runway for what can go wrong. The bigger the operation, the more runway. So all signs to me put me in a position to say do I want to enter this another cycle? Am I in this for the long haul? And when starting that new investment cycle, you have to consider what that particular one's going to be. For us, are we going to get into shirts? I can't compete with you folks. The natural thing for us would be considering, full color offset, which is a multi-million-dollar investment. We're not going to make that back. We're not going to make that back in the window of time that I want to be on board, right? And the scariest thing about, starting up a new investment cycle is that it's going to be a shit ton of work before, you end up seeing an ROI. So the options at the end of an investment cycle, right? Expand in an existing market. We were big fish in a small pond. So growth within our current offerings in just letterpress and flat stock, it would just be about fighting over a few points. Screen printing shirts, that you have a much bigger pond in that, that you all chose. A few percentage points in that can really move the needle. In our world, a few percentage points battling it out with other competitors, it's not a game changer because our pool is so much smaller. Okay. Another option when you end the investment cycle and you need to look to the future, expand into new markets. Just touched on that a little bit before. Expanding into full color shirts, any other market, it's an investment phase. It wouldn't leverage our current staff. Anything we went to do, we were already maxed out. We can add a night shift for what we currently do, but again, where are we going to find in a business so tight enough to do that? So anything we wanted to expand to, we wouldn't be leveraging our operation effectively. It'd be like a whole new business inside of our business with, a new building and another move. So basically, it would just be a move to leverage our customer base to cross-sell to. It could definitely be worth it, but the time to recoup it, do I personally want to go through that process? And the timeline to does that make financial sense? It's a personal decision at this point. The numbers inform, and then you decide as a human, right? Expand by acquisition. We've already done that several times in our space to gain more points. Again, I could be open to it in this situation, but I wanted to analyze it further. And we ultimately decided to enter some talks about this at this time. But if you're buying something of value, you're going to pay out, like I said, a multiple. The multiple it's the profits in the future that someone's selling, that they're saying, okay, give me my 5 years of profit and I'll walk away. And then you're saying I'll give up 5 years of profit to have the option to carry it on in the future past that. So we've been through it several times. I know the headache. In fact, we actually did take this route. We did buy a distressed print shop, my partner and I, but it has nothing to do, it's a completely different business. Because like I said, it'd be a business within a business, let's just make a separate business. And in this case, it was just more a matter of margin is wealth. If you have coffers and you have margin and you can wait, we looked at this, this other print shop, and we said, it's 100% wedding business. This is COVID, and they're not willing to wait. We'll take that risk, So we ended up doing that as well. So there is another print shop that I bought under that, but I wouldn't file it under Mama Sauce. And then the other thing is exit, before beginning a new cycle. And I said before beginning a new investment cycle because that's when the time is right. When you've recouped your investment and now you're seeing an ROI, you're bankable for expansion, and you're also valuable as a sellable asset, right? You have options. So we did start the conversation in late 2019. We started talking to another print shop, right? Where's my little thingy? Where's my mouse? There we go. Started talking to another print shop right about then, before COVID, about one of us purchasing, let's talk about this. Should we merge? Are you interested in selling? Are we interested in selling? A lot of these conversations start out with the question of, what's important to you? That's if I'm looking at a business, like that's the question I want to know right away from the person that, that we're buying from. Like, what's important to you? Because then you know how to approach it. You know their value point. I know we got started late, so I'm going to start shredding quick here. Anyways, we started those conversations. COVID hits. We dropped 99% in April. 99. We're probably not the only people that dropped, a significant amount in April of 2020. But for me personally, that helped me make a decision that I was like, rebuilding out of this is not something that I wanted to do. Buying something turnkey and distressed, and I'll do that. So we started to set our focuses on the person that we already started talking to in light of COVID. We start rebuilding for a specific buyer. What are the types of buyers? Someone buying a job. That is the most typical person that you'd find with a business broker. Maybe they're in the finance, industry for years. They've saved up a couple $100,000. Now they want to buy a job. That's not someone that's going to buy our business. Probably not someone that's going to buy a t-shirt screen printing shop either. It's a complicated thing. Someone wants something packaged a little nicer than that. So who else could buy us? Someone just looking to acquire assets, systems, and talent. There's not a big enough fish in our pond, really, that would want it to buy us, because we're actually the most complicated of the big 3 letterpress printers. The most complicated, because we were all custom. Everything hyper custom. 8 colors, 4 processes, glued together. And the other 2 big dogs, one had a product that was driving their business, and the other one really moved wholly into packaging. And so we represented something way too complicated. So anyone that could buy us for our assets, just, it just was a non-starter. And then, acquiring a book, the type of buyer who's acquiring a book of business, that's going to be someone for cash flow. That's the most common. Why? Because what business they're after is cash flow, and how do we want it? As easy as we possibly can get. So, buying cash flow is your most common. It's the easiest way to get net revenue, and that comes from that idea of add backs, from that formula that I put up earlier. Applying add backs looks like this, right? How much is the book of business of the company I'm looking at? How much of that book of business, how much of that could I handle without changing a thing that I do? Maybe, if I could open a night shift and take on all their work and shut everything down and just keep their production, look at all the overhead I saved. That's an add back, right? That's why you get multiples out of that. They don't have to go through the client acquisition cost. They're paying it right now in that multiple, and it's a lot cheaper, and it's just much more effective to do it that way. So that's why we went down that path, right? So we tuned for the right buyer, acquiring the book of business, and we started really rebuilding in a way to focus on, the person we're already talking to, honestly, at the end of the day. But you always need 3 bids, right? You always need competition. We went out and shopped and talked to other folks, but we knew that we already were down the road with this person, and if we retool our business and put it together the right way, that it would make sense. And that conversation easily shifted when I made my personal decision saying, out of COVID and everything else, I'm like, yeah, I don't feel like onboarding a new company, starting a new investment cycle. We'll just swing it their way. And we have to make it really sweet, and we have to package it just right. And at that point, it's as simple as putting together a spreadsheet. The numbers don't lie. When someone does what you do, another screen printing shop, another t-shirt shop, you can easily put together a spreadsheet, and like we did to them, it's like, here's our gross revenue. Here's our operating costs. Here's, because we know you so well, what we would guess your operating costs, what would go away from ours. Look at that profit. Now, here's the multiple that we want because of X, Y, and Z. Then you fight over that valuation, you fight over that multiple, and then you have a sale. It more or less goes that way in this process every time. Fine, great. Perfect. So if I was to start over, I think it would have been way more profitable of a business if I had a seller's mindset from even back when I was staunchly against selling the company. Because the seller's mindset is the maximum value mindset. And that's what I would tell you. Even if you're not thinking of selling, always invest in what returns value to the company's bottom line. I know it's hard, but I mean, ultimately that's what we're serving. The bottom line. You can't treat your customers well unless you have a healthy business. You can't treat your employees well unless you have a healthy business. And for me, the best way is to point out and say, like, I want a company that's sellable. I want a company that's transferable. That gives me maximum freedom, right? That gives me the healthiest company. Great artists need a benefactor. So do great businesses and business owners. And cash is that's what benefacts you. Benefax? Benefish? I'm just going to leave that one behind. I would say if you're lacking in any of these areas, start going down the list of them and start with the elements that put money in your pocket first, throwing off cash. If you're paying with human capital of yourself as owner, you got to stop doing that, and you got to start with things that are just going to start, putting money in your pocket. Work has to be rewarded. I'm probably not the only business owner in this room that's gone without a paycheck to help make the business's ends meet. I know there's other people who have done that before. It's not a sin, but it's not something to make a habit out of. Remember, your compensation is a store of value for the company. It's directly related to the company's value. Remember that your assets are also a store of value. And remember that your growth trend is also, something to mind. So a seller's mindset is that, those three things: profitability, assets, and growing the things that bring multiples, contracts, owner compensation, and ratio of work, and your growth trend. And the most valuable business, I'll end with this, to sell is the one worth keeping. Far too often, when you're busy running a business, you got your head down, working to meet today's goals, tomorrow's goals, next month's. Heck, you may have a 5-year goal. But if you don't have a goal for an exit, you don't have a catalyst or something in your mind trying to create distance between you and that business. You'll never really effectively put a healthy relationship together. So I believe the mindset of building a company that's worth selling, the mindset of the most valuable business to sell is the one that's worth keeping is a winner. Just keep an exit option mindset, and you'll end up with a company worth keeping. Because if you have a company worth keeping, it's just going to be so hard to sell it. I would have been way ahead of where I'm at right now. And the decision of whether to go through another investment cycle or not it would have been a lot harder because I would have been a lot better off. And maybe if I built the most valuable company to sell from the beginning, I still have it today. Y'all can find me here now. We are the fittest. If you don't want to talk about selling businesses anymore, that's where I'm at. Thank you so much for listening to my story.